This pregnant woman, who appeared to be full-term, had an epileptic seizure right after registering. Manning had the nurse give her a shot of Meiji, but it didn't seem to work. So Manning gave her an additional dose of diazepam and kept her under observation. Manning gave her an ultrasound. Strangely, the fetus was only about 20 weeks old, not full-term as it appeared.
But she's so big. Whoa, that's all free fluid. Maybe she's cirrhotic?
No, she has cancer. My wife, she has ovarian cancer, stage 4.
Xiao Dai's CT scan showed that her cancer had spread to her brain. Manning said that Xiao Dai's epileptic seizure was caused by a large tumor on her right temporal lobe. Xiao Dai calmly told Manning that she had been diagnosed with cancer when she was 3 months pregnant. At that time, she had decided to give up treatment, so she knew the risks she would have to bear. Manning told them that the tumor could be removed through surgery. Xiao Dai said that this would harm the fetus. Manning admitted that although doctors would take precautions, general anesthesia would pose a risk to the fetus. Xiao Dai immediately refused the surgery. Keller urged Xiao Dai not to completely rule out treatment, so they decided to consider it further. While the nurse was examining Xiao Dai, Keller approached Manning privately. He said that Xiao Dai had mentioned that if the cancer rapidly worsened, she might consider treatment. Therefore, the tumor in her brain might be affecting her judgment, so Xiao Dai might not have the capacity to make decisions. However, Manning said that Xiao Dai still seemed capable of making decisions. At Keller's repeated request, Manning agreed to have a psychiatrist assess Xiao Dai's condition, so Manning brought Charles to Xiao Dai's ward. Xiao Dai was very surprised by the psychiatrist's arrival, but before Charles could start talking to her, Xiao Dai fainted. Her pupils began to dilate and become fixed. Manning suspected brain swelling and decided to intubate her and immediately send her for a CT scan. Since Charles hadn't had time to assess her, Xiao Dai had already fallen ill, so he couldn't determine whether Xiao Dai was capable of making decisions. However, Charles added that the tumor in her brain could indeed affect her judgment and cognition, but Manning pointed out that Xiao Dai had refused treatment since her diagnosis, and since there was no written record to clearly express her wishes, only a clear advance medical directive designated Keller as her decision-maker. But Manning felt that Keller was taking advantage of the situation to violate Xiao Dai's wishes. If something went wrong during the surgery, it would be troublesome. Keller sought Charles's help in despair. He said that without surgery, Xiao Dai might not wake up, but she would miscarry. Charles told Keller that none of this was certain. If Xiao Dai didn't wake up, the doctors would continue treating her, keeping her on a ventilator until the cesarean section. Charles felt sorry for Keller, but didn't know how to comfort him. Keller said that Xiao Dai wanted him to do this, but they had been together since college, supporting each other for so many years. He didn't know how to make the decision. Charles encouraged Keller. Xiao Dai trusted him the most and believed he could make the right decision. Manning informed Keller that they were preparing Xiao Dai for surgery. The attending physician was already waiting in the operating room, and Manning confirmed Keller's decision again.
No surgery.
Caleb, are you sure?
Cancer took everything away from Desi. But this is the one thing she was determined not to let it touch.